lovelies. I bet you're wondering why it's so damn bright in this room and why I'm wearing this, of all things. Well, we're about to talk about something that is a pretty ugly subject. So I figured, if we're going to be talking about awful, terrible crap, and you're just going to have to listen to it and me talking about it and covering it, just how goddamn awful it is, might as well make something pretty, right? Anyways, let's get into what can get the fuck out of the fandom today. As furries, many of us developed our interest in the fandom usually at like a younger age. I know I did. You see a character you like in a TV show, you read a book that has furry characters in it, or both. You play a video game that maybe has a protagonist that seems very interesting and just happens to have big old floppy ears or a tail. It's different for everybody, so, it happens. But what happens, when that interest grows with you over time, you get a little bit older, and things go from there. Well, usually, if you retain the interest, you are able to, discern from what's appropriate for the younger audience and the older audience. Usually. That's not always the case with furries, though. Some in the fandom have a pretty serious issue with what is appropriate for kids and what is appropriate for adults. More specifically, how to interact with kids if you are an adult. That's right, in today's episode, we are actually going to have an adult conversation about kid diddlers and how they impact our fandom and how they can get the fuck out. So our fandom's had a lot of problems with a lot of things, but this one is really serious. Like last video, hurting animals is horrible. Hurting kids is just as horrible and should not be tolerated. I don't know why I have to tell you that it's terrible, but apparently on Twitter, not just inside our community, abroad, some people seem to still think it's okay and have coined new and fanciful terms to excuse away what is genuinely awful. Now in the last video, I did go a little far. I said the only way to fix things was police jail time. That didn't sit well with some of you. And you know what, I took some time to reflect and I agree. I do think some people who suffer from these interests that are not healthy, not appropriate, and really not okay should invest some time into therapy and seeking a professional. That being said, I still hold true on my point on supporting these people in any kind of way that helps their standing in the community. While hurting animals is certainly horrible and terrible, it is not the only crime with many times a voiceless victim. Many of our younger fandom members who experience this kind of inappropriate contact from older people probably feel like they can't say anything because these older people, for so long, have been empowered through people purchasing art, people subscribing to channels, people attending cons, and basically they're standing in the community as it relates to either financial status, familiarity, or popularity, and that's a problem. While some people debate on whether or not cub art, we're gonna use the word art so this video can hopefully not get yeeted off the face of the earth, while some have debated whether cub art is, really a valid thing that should, just be okay because it's not real. If you want my honest stance on it, I find it very creepy. Especially that type of art that goes in the After Dark direction. Now, I understand a lot of people sometimes make the comparison of baby furs and these people, but I'd like to explain that is not always the case. In many cases, from my video on baby furs, I have found that a lot of people in that community are using characters, not always sexually, of those ages to kind of relive childhood. Now, those that do it sexually, I'm going to be honest, while I did that video from a very unbiased point of view, my standing is still that if you're doing the After Dark sexy things in that situation, it's not something I'm comfortable with doing myself, and it's not something I'm super into. So, if that's your thing, okay, but it's not for me. Now, people who then further transition, things to hurting people, that's where we have a problem. In the fandom, people not being great towards animals is nothing new. People not being great towards kids is nothing new. Back when I joined the fandom, which was really not that long ago, from my perspective, most of the community seemed to be of the more adult age group. I saw a lot of lewd art. I saw a lot of merch-eating content. I didn't really see many kid things until I went to YouTube and discovered some channels that catered to that. This channel does not. I'm an adult. I like adult things. It's not always going to be for kids. I made some videos that might be appropriate for them. That might have been how I started my channel, but it is not my job to be entertainment for your children. That being said, it is my job to talk about the shit that needs to be talked about, and I don't think we talk about this enough, and that is a problem. In this fandom, we should absolutely not be a safe haven for people that hurt anyone, but in this case, especially kids. As someone that doesn't really like children, like when I say children, I mean like very small children. I don't do great with kids. I can be respectful enough to not be a douche about it and like not be rude unless your kid is like kicking me or being rude or spitting on my shoe. Whatever. However, I do think that if in any way this fandom leads to the harm of a child, we have failed. And I do think in many respects, we have not done enough. There have been plenty of examples of people taking advantage of minors, and this is not even just in our fandom. It seems to be in the world at large. But in this fandom, we have a chance to actually stop that shit in its tracks. Similar to what I said in the part 1, actually notifying authorities and compiling evidence is a super effective tactic at getting them after the incident has occurred. However, because younger members of our community are capable of thought and speech, crazy concept, I know, there are also ways that we can help prevent this shit from happening. What do I mean by this? If you know someone who is a minor in the fandom, and you are on comfortable speaking terms with them, it's not weird, or if you have any kind of influence on your channel, the time to start having conversations about how to stay safe in this community need to start now, immediately. After you finish this video, go have a discussion. If you're a parent in this fandom, go have a discussion. If you're a minor who has watched this video for some reason, go have a discussion with your other minor friends. We need to stop this shit now. Things that we can do immediately. Make sure that if your content is not for someone under the age of 18, whether you be like a lewd art account or what have you, mark that shit clearly in your bio. Even if you yourself may not have an interest in this nasty topic we're talking about, it does help to normalize for younger members of our community that that content is not for them. Additionally, tell your friends who are minors not to enter adult spaces before they are of consenting legal age, and this is huge. Even if they think they're ready for it and ooh edgy, and I'm sure plenty of us accidentally stumbled onto Newgrounds when we were younger back in the day, the community, the internet, and society have very greatly changed. It is not as like haha oopsie as it used to be. For creators who are over the age of 18 who make adult-oriented content, whether it be OnlyFans or 80 Twitter, or they make very lewd art, their content is not meant to be shared with people under the age of 18. At least in the States, that is the online legal age to go by. I don't know about your country if it's different, don't come for me, but as a good general rule of thumb, 18. If a minor is caught like, looking at this content, oh no, think of the children, that creator is also on the hot seat, and that sucks because in many cases they didn't intend for that content to be in front of that minor in the first place. Additionally, if minors get into the habit of nudging their way into 18 plus spaces, it's going to set a precedent and they could nudge their way into the wrong space, get in with the wrong people, and become the victim of a predator. And that's really fucking bad, and it shouldn't happen. While as much as this sounds like me as an older person being like, rah, get off my lawn, kids. Seriously though, get off those lawns. You're not supposed to be on them. If you are under consenting age, you are not supposed to be there. That content's not for you, and if you keep stumbling onto this 18 plus content, it's not great. Additionally, lying about your age. Please stop doing that. Don't do that. Because what happens is if I think you're of a consenting age, and you buy one of my content things that I have that are for older people, that's a problem, which is why you can't do that actually. That's partially why my other the other docky, my artist, Ryu, cards people before they buy it. Because the last thing I want is my 18 plus oriented docky in the hands of a fucking child who is not supposed to be looking at that content yet. No, I don't want to contribute to that problem. It's also why a lot of my more sassy things are behind a paywall, because I don't want younger people looking at that content. They are not supposed to and they should not. And I don't want to be held responsible if they do. So I made it extremely hard for them to get that content. If someone finds a way to get it by circumventing the system, I have done my best and I tried. Why do I set that precedent? Why do I do that? Because I know there are some that don't. I know there are some that don't do that. Granted, I did make that one mistake on Twitter that one time. That is my bad. I realized that was a mistake. Oops. Sorry, but I have been working to do better and not have that be a liability. And having seen some of the atrocious things that have happened in our community, I definitely don't want to be held responsible for doing something that awful. Nor do I want minors to get the idea that it's okay to be in those spaces when they really shouldn't be. Because the more and more they get into it, the more and more they're at risk of bumping into someone who could be a predator. Now, those are like preventative stuff. What happens if something happens? You tried everything you could and it still happened. I would also like to set a precedence of, if you are too scared to talk about it with authorities, at the very least, please have an open and honest conversation with your legal guardian or your parent or someone you can really trust, preferably legal guardian or parent, so that they can help you through the process. Because the last thing I want to do as a creator on this platform is unknowingly support someone who has done that to a child or a minor or someone who was not supposed to be in that situation because they didn't know what happened. That is the last thing I ever want to do. And there have been so many cases of me finding out that, people I have retweeted or someone I followed or has done something terrible, and it's all come a little too late because I have already given the boost and I've already supported it. And I do not want that to happen. I never want that to happen. So if you do find yourself in a situation you're not comfortable talking about it just yet, please try to talk to a parent or legal guardian or someone you can really trust, and try your best to get help for that. Now, similar to my last video, while we really seem to love canceling people, and I get it, the blank is over party kind of set the tone, and everybody really likes a good cancel party. I understand. Anytime you have the ability to, please go to authorities. Get bunches of evidence. Get as much on the record as you can. If you think you have been in any way harmed, try to get a kit done. Try to get anything you can. Compile everything and get it to the authorities. And you know what? If something comes of it and, the person is either sent to some form of therapy or treatment that can help them get that fixed, or two, some kind of law enforcement have some kind of actual case built against them, then after that's done, feel free to celebrate on Twitter like it's your birthday. Then go nuts. But until that happens, please don't. Because in many cases that I have seen, not just in this fandom, but in others, I have seen people, pop it up on Twitter, and then suddenly hard drives are cleared, message accounts are cleared and deleted, things are yeeted into the sun, everything is gone. And it's very hard for people who are trying to get justice for some of these victims to actually get it. And I understand, trying to issue a community warning is important, but we shouldn't just be warning anymore. We should be taking action. If you think someone has been harmed, actually have a conversation with them first. Please never report someone else's crime as your own. That is extremely bad. Let people tell their own stories. Please do not do it on their behalf. That is heinously bad. But if if someone is trying to get help because they have been a victim of this, be there for them, try to help them, try to get them justice. Don't just start a Twitter cancel train, because it doesn't really help. Let's be real. How many times have you seen someone who's been canceled on the platform actually face real world consequences, especially in this variety? I'll wait. Not really, right? Maybe you get the sob story apology. Maybe you get the I'm innocent actually. And in some cases where it's been disproven, suddenly all the logs that haven't been cropped come out and people are like, oh, well then it didn't happen. Which is why it's really important that if you have these allegations, always when you're using screenshots, please, for the love of all that is holy, don't crop them, because if you crop out the context, it makes it very hard to actually tell how and why that phrase came into being, and it leads to speculation that maybe we're not reading it in the right context. So please don't crop them. Thank you. But people who can get out of our fandom right fucking now, people that hurt kids. Because while I might not be a person that really enjoys the idea of having children or children in general, I can't ignore that there are kids in this community. And I know they probably hate being called kids, but you know what? Whatever. You're under the age of 18. If you're under the age of 18, to me, you're a kid. There are kids in this fandom. Shocking, I know. Who would have thought years ago that we'd actually have things like Amino and Twitter and TikTok bringing in a younger and younger generation to our fandom? But the fact is, it is. It is. And that's not a bad thing. We all had Disney. They have whatever the kids do on TikTok these days. Well, I don't freaking know. But because we have that, we now have a responsibility, to some degree, to try not to fuck up their whole life. So in an effort to not fuck up their whole life, try to have honest conversations about 18 plus spaces with them. Not the gory details, Jesus Christ, but how to behave around them. If there's an 18 plus space, tell them they really shouldn't go there until they're 18. If there is like a content creator who has like an OnlyFans and they're like, ooh, I want to see what's on it, advise them that that's a terrible fucking idea. And if they found themselves the victim of something terrible, help. Listen, don't just use their story to cancel and get your cloudy points on Twitter, because I see some of you posting these and then linking all your personal shit below. Don't use this shit for your own gain. Get them the help they need, and when the person that has done them wrong gets justice, party as much as you want with cancel parties. But don't use it for your own personal gain. Actually get them real help and real justice, not just cloudy points. And I'm sure someone's going to yell at me for that, but your cloud points don't really mean fuck all if the person who was harmed doesn't actually get justice. Let's actually hold people accountable. And for that matter, if someone has been outed and been found guilty of, harming a child, don't fucking buy their shit. Please. Don't buy their suits. Don't sub to them on YouTube. Don't follow them on Twitter. Don't buy their shit off of Etsy. Don't go to their cons. Insist that the con remove them from the board if all the evidence is out there. If someone on the board is actually concretely guilty via actual cases, and the results of those cases found them guilty, please actually request that they be removed. Actually ask for cons to be accountable. If there's someone on your staff that's done really bad, they gotta go, or just don't go to the con. I know that's easy to say because there's no cons right now, so you can't go to any fucking cons, but you know what I mean. Just because art pretty, suit cute, con fun. If there's something that's seriously wrong and they've hurt a kid, like I said in the last video, you giving them your follows, your monies, your subscriptions, you're just enabling the behavior. You're allowing them to keep their social status. Don't do that. And in the same vein, I know I may not be a huge fan of kids, but when they got something to say, listen. And if you see them veering down a dark path of trying to edge their way into an 18 plus space, and if you find that they've been lying about their age to get into those spaces, tell them no, because it might be fun and edgy and cool to hang with the in crowd that shows ooh, they're mersuits now. They could harm those creators and those people by lying about it, and they could expose themselves to dangerous people. So instead of just going, think of the children, let's actually fucking think of the children. Yeah? Yeah.